We're going to talk about reflexes. The Bio 30 term you need to know is the reflex arc. Now you know a little bit about reflexes. You know that they are automatic. You know that you don't have to think about it. So an example is when you're in the doctor's office getting your checkup and he takes that little hammer to your knee, specifically your patellar tendon, and he strikes it and that causes your leg to kick out. You know, you can't control that. It happens automatically. You don't have to think about it. And that's an important aspect of reflexes. Because they're automatic and you don't have to think, they actually protect you. So here's one example. Okay, so you can see that you touch something hot, perhaps inadvertently, and automatically, without thinking about it, your hand pulls away. Now that's important because without the automatic nature of the reflex arc, if you touch something hot, that information would have to go up to your brain. Your brain would have to process it, say, okay, that hurts, I need to pull my hand away. And then it would send a signal to your muscles telling it to pull away. And it just takes that much longer. In the meantime, you've probably done quite a bit of damage to your skin, to your fingers. So to protect us from our own stupidity, I guess, we have what are called reflexes. These are automatic responses. And here's one example, and you might have experienced this when you were little. You see an oven glowing orange and you touch it, and without thinking, your hand automatically pulls away. So here's how it happens. And there's 5 steps here, and you should definitely, for the purposes of Bio 30, know these 5 steps. So the first step is this. You touch something hot, and that stimulus is picked up by special cells called sensory receptors. So that's step number 1. The stimulus is picked up by special cells whose jobs it is to receive that information, to pick up that information. So that's a sensory receptor. Step number 2, sensory receptor sends that information to a sensory neuron. Now the sensory neuron's job is to transmit information from your skin or your other sensory receptors to your central nervous system. So it's going to take that message from your arm, up your arm, to your spinal cord. So this is a cross-section of your spinal cord. And when it gets there, it's going to communicate with an association neuron. I like to use the term interneuron. It means the same thing. Now, interneurons or association neurons are neurons that are located within your central nervous system, so within your brain, within your spinal cord. And when the signal gets to that association neuron, it's going to communicate with the appropriate motor neuron. Okay, so this is the next step. That motor neuron is going to send a signal down your arm to your muscle, to your skeletal muscle, and tell it to contract, pull away. Okay, the last step is the skeletal muscle. We call that the effector. It doesn't have to be a skeletal muscle, it can be a gland. Anyway, so step number 5 we call an effector. So once again, really quickly, step number 1, sensory receptor picks up the heat, picks up the temperature difference. Step number 2, the sensory neuron takes that information from the receptor, transmits it to the spinal cord where it communicates with an association neuron. Step number 4, so the association neuron is step number 3. Step number 4, it communicates with a motor neuron, takes that information down the arm to the skeletal muscle, and when it gets there, it tells that skeletal muscle to contract. And that's step number 5, and that's the effector. Notice one really important thing here, and that is the brain is not involved at all. And that's why reflexes are automatic, and there's no thought involved, because the brain is not involved. To involve the brain would involve taking that message right up to the brain, processing time, and sending it back. It would take a lot longer. So reflexes are quick because the brain is not involved.